The year is 1868. The Great Plains are gripped by violence. The tide of settlers, railroads, and industry pushes ever westward, displacing entire nations in the process. For the Cheyenne, Arapaho, and Sioux, this is more than a fight for land. It is a fight for survival. Their ancestral hunting grounds are shrinking. Their people, harried by broken treaties and relentless expansion, once more turn to war. In Kansas, raids erupt across the countryside, burning farms, destroying wagon trains, and killing hundreds of settlers. For the indigenous warriors, the memory of the Sand Creek Massacre still festers, a scar that drives many to the warpath. The U.S. Army is stretched thin. It cannot be everywhere. The frontier is vast, and the enemy is scattered and elusive. For the U.S., General Philip Sheridan has been newly appointed to command the Department of the Missouri, though he is faced with an impossible task. But Sheridan is a man of ruthless pragmatism. If conventional armies cannot win the fight, he believes unconventional ones will. He calls upon Major George Alexander Forsyth, a hardened veteran of the Civil War. His orders are simple and brutal. Raise a company of 50 of the toughest, most capable frontiersmen alive. Men who know the land and the enemy's ways. They are to fight as the warriors do, mobile, cunning, and relentless. At Fort Harker, Fort Hays, and Fort Wallace, Forsyth finds his men. His force is made up of 50 hand-picked scouts, armed with Spencer repeating rifles, which will prove a deadly advantage in the open plains. For weeks, Forsyth scouts ride hard across the plains of Kansas and Colorado, trailing raiders north toward Nebraska, before then turning south again. But the enemy proves elusive. Then in September, he receives news. A freighter's train had been attacked just east of Fort Wallace, and 79 settlers are reported dead in a wave of raids. Forsyth saddles his men and rides. By the evening of September 16th, the scouts reached the dry fork of the Republican River in what is now northeastern Colorado. They began making camp near the water, unaware that just 12 miles upstream lied the main encampment of the Cheyenne Dog Soldiers, joined by the Oglala Lakota and Arapaho. Several hundred warriors are gathered there, and among them the legendary Cheyenne war chief, Fighting Bear, known to the whites as Roman Nose. At dawn, the storm that had covered the valley in dense fog finally breaks. Unknown to the small detachment of 50 men, hundreds of warriors had now positioned themselves on the hills around Forsyth's camp, effectively encircling them. Roman Nose's first objective was to drive away their horses. With them gone, the scouts would be trapped in the large open plain, unable to retreat or move. He ordered a group of 8 braves into the valley to try and stampede the mounts. The open plain means they are forced to race toward the camp. As they begin screaming war cries, they are quickly noticed by the soldiers, who react fast and the shooting begins. The warriors who are exposed in the open plain soon come under a storm of gunfire. which quickly forces them back, though not before they have killed or wounded many of the horses, effectively immobilizing the scouts. Now expecting attack, Forsyth knows at once that holding the open plain is suicide. He orders his men to pull back to a low sandbar in the shallow river. There they are to prepare for the fight of their lives. Their wounded horses are shot to use their carcasses as makeshift barricades, and they begin digging firing pits into the sand. Soon the hillsides begin crawling with mounted horsemen as they descend the slopes into the dry, arid valley to begin to charge the scouts' position. Wave after wave of mounted braves sweep in from all sides, many charging close enough to fire, attempting to intimidate the scouts, breaking their cohesion, and hopefully stampeding the remaining horses. Though the scouts' Spencer rifles, which are capable of firing up to 20 shots a minute, quickly tear holes through the horsemen, and any that venture too close are quickly cut down. Observing the carnage unfolding in front of them, the natives quickly abandon their charges. Many begin dismounting to spread out, using the bluffs and tall grass to conceal themselves. Sharpshooters crawl forward, firing from the cover of the riverbanks and the brush, beginning a deadly sniper duel. Forsyth's men are exposed and pinned down from every direction, receiving almost constant fire. Amid the chaos rides Roman Nose. Believing he was cursed, superstition had initially kept him from the battle. But now, with accusations of cowardice, he aimed to lead another direct assault himself. Joined by roughly 50 of his men, he aimed at a direct frontal charge to break the enemy line. As the warriors approach, the scouts hold their fire. Once they come within 50 yards, they unleash a deafening volley. Among the first to fall is Roman Nose, struck by a bullet to the back. With their leader down, the charge quickly unravels, and several dismount to help their wounded leader from the field, though he would die later that night. The battle rages on for hours. Snipers pick off men one by one. The island is a scene of death. Pits of sand surrounded by the bloated bodies of dead horses, swarming with flies and baking in the hot desert sun. By nightfall, Forsyth himself is gravely wounded. One bullet has grazed his skull, another shatters his left leg, and a third lodges near his femoral artery. But still the scouts hold. With no hope of reinforcement, Forsyth gives the order. Two of his men, Jack Stillwell, who is barely 19, and Pierre Trudeau, will slip through the lines and ride to Fort Wallace. It is a mission of desperation. They will have to cross 70 miles of hostile territory on foot. Under cover of darkness, the pair crawls for miles, avoiding native scouting parties and snipers, before striking out across the plains. For 4 days, they will evade patrols and survive on nothing but rotten horse meat, pushing their bodies to the brink of collapse. Meanwhile, on the island, the siege drags on, remaining in a continuous sniping duel. By the 4th day, morale has crumbled. The water runs low, and the scouts are reduced from drinking from the filthy pools and eating the maggot-ridden flesh of their dead horses. The native bands, without their leader, and realizing the soldiers were too well entrenched for any assaults, began to disperse, fearing the arrival of a relief force, leaving the battlefield progressively more empty. Jack Stilwell and Pierre Trudeau had successfully made their 70-mile journey to Fort Wallace in about 4 days. Their call for aid was immediately answered. Lieutenant Colonel Lewis Carpenter of the 10th Cavalry immediately departed for their position. He was joined by Captain Burkhead and Major Brinsben, who were to lead separate columns along different routes. At dawn on September 25th, Carpenter's column arrived roughly 8 days after the battle began. The scene was horrific. 50 dead horses lay rotting in the sun, black with flies. Forsyth himself was barely conscious but alive. His men were skeletal and exhausted. 6 lay dead on the field, and 15 more were wounded. It is estimated they killed between 30 to 75 native warriors, with many more likely wounded. Beecher Island changed nothing and yet everything. To the U.S. Army, it was proof that small patrols, forts, and reactionary skirmishes would never pacify the plains. If the war was to be won, it would take a war of annihilation. By late 1868, Sheridan's campaign was in full swing, killing not just warriors, but women, children, and elders, all falling beneath gunfire and the saber.